Sure, here's a fun little cartoon story for you. Title: The Great Sandwich Heist. Once upon a time, in a small town called Nuttyville, lived two best friends, Benny the Bunny and Timmy the Squirrel. They were known all over town for their mischievous adventures. But today, they had something even bigger in mind: stealing the legendary big cheese sandwich from Mrs. Buttercup's bakery. The sandwich was said to be the biggest, cheesiest, and most delicious sandwich ever made, and only the bravest dared to try it. Mrs. Buttercup, the kind but very forgetful baker, always left it cooling by the window every afternoon. One sunny day, Benny and Timmy decided it was time for the heist. Benny wore a tiny mask over his eyes, and Timmy had a cape made of leaves. They tiptoed to the bakery, giggling like crazy. "I can already smell the cheese," Timmy whispered, his tail twitching excitedly. "I'm going to grab it before Mrs. Buttercup notices," Benny said confidently. They reached the window and, poof, the sandwich was gone. Mrs. Buttercup, who had been watching from behind the door, opened it and chuckled. "Nice try, boys," she said, holding up the sandwich in her hands. "I knew you two would come for it. I made an extra large one just for you." Benny and Timmy blinked in surprise. They had been caught, but Mrs. Buttercup's warm smile made them forget about the heist. "I'm sorry we tried to steal it," Benny said. "It's okay, you little troublemakers," Mrs. Buttercup laughed. "How about you both help me bake more for the whole town?" Benny and Timmy were thrilled. That afternoon they learned how to bake the biggest, cheesiest sandwiches ever, and they made enough to feed everyone in Nuttyville. From that day on, they were known as the sandwich masters of the town, and Mrs. Buttercup's bakery became the most famous spot for cheese lovers.